Think about something simple, like a rose. You can smell it, you can see that deep red color, you can even feel the sharp point of a thorn, right? That's what feels real to us. But what if? What if it's all just code? What if everything you think you know is just part of an elaborate program? It's kind of like that famous scene from The Matrix, right? Take the red pill. You get the choice, see what's really going on, or stay comfortable in the world you know. And believe it or not, some of the world's leading thinkers are asking us to consider that very same choice today. So yeah, let's take that red pill. Let's see just how deep this rabbit hole really goes. So let me just ask you straight up, are you living in a computer simulation? I mean, seriously, could the Big Bang have just been someone booting up the system, flipping the on switch for our universe? It sounds totally like science fiction, I get it, but you're going to be surprised by how strong some of the arguments actually are. All right, so to even begin to wrap our heads around this, let's start with an idea we can all understand. Think of our universe as just a really, really advanced video game. And when you start to break it down like this, you see just how insane the challenge would be. I mean, imagine you're the one programming this thing. You need a physics engine for, well, everything. Gravity, light, all of it. Then you have to program all 5 senses, the taste of your morning coffee, the feeling of wind on your skin. And you'd have to render the entire universe, all at once, all the time. The amount of computer power you'd need is just, it's astronomical. So how would you even begin to manage that? Well, you'd probably do what video game designers do today. You'd use shortcuts, cheats. Maybe you limit the number of real players, and everyone else is just an NPC, a non-player character. Or maybe the simulation only renders stuff in high detail right where you're looking. Everything else in your peripheral vision, it's just a low-res blur to save on processing power. And that leads to a pretty wild thought, doesn't it? What if you're the only real player here? But okay, let's park that idea for a second. The whole concept gets even weirder and way more personal. Because even if the world outside of you is 100% real, the world you experience inside your mind, well, that's a different story. See, your brain doesn't just see reality, it builds it. And here's a fantastic example of how it works. Magicians are masters at exploiting this. There's a mental shortcut our brains take called a modal completion. So let's say you see a rabbit. Then something slides in front of it, blocking the middle part. Your brain doesn't just see 2 rabbit ends. No, it pulls up its file for rabbit, fills in the missing piece, and you see a whole rabbit hiding behind the object. Your brain literally creates something that isn't there to make the story make sense. And check this out, it gets even crazier. It's called the McGurk effect. Imagine you're listening to an audio recording of someone saying buh, buh, buh. Simple enough. But now, what if you watch a video of someone's lips making the shape for fuh, fuh, fuh at the same time? You know what you'll hear? You'll hear fuh. Your eyes literally change what your ears are hearing. Your brain gets these 2 conflicting signals and it picks one and creates a new story. And that story becomes your reality. So what does all this mean? Well, Professor Charles Falco put it perfectly. There was never an evolutionary reason for us to see reality as it actually is. We just evolved to see the reality that helps us survive. It's not about seeing the objective truth. It's about seeing enough to eat, not get eaten, and live to see another day. Okay, so our senses can be tricked. Fair enough. But what about the hard stuff? The laws of physics, math? Surely that's real, right? Well, what if we could find evidence of the simulation buried in the source code of the universe itself? This is where the work of a computer scientist named Jürgen Schmidhuber gets really interesting. His big idea is all about data compression, making complex stuff simple. Just think about the number pi. It goes on forever, right? A super complex, never-ending string of numbers. But the code to generate it? It's incredibly simple. It's just the ratio of a circle's circumference to its diameter. A tiny bit of code can create something that seems infinitely complex. And as Schmidhuber himself says, this could be happening everywhere. I mean, think about those amazing, realistic mountain ranges you see in a video game. They look so complex and unique, but often they're just generated from a very short, repeating piece of code, a fractal. So what if our universe is just like that? What if all this complexity is running on just a few lines of code? This whole idea was kind of theoretical, until physicist Jim Gates was deep in the weeds working on the incredibly complex math of string theory. He's trying to figure out the fundamental building blocks of our reality, And buried deep inside all these equations, he found something that just shouldn't have been there. What did he find? He found literal computer code. And not just any code, but a very specific kind that you and I use every single day. He found error-correcting codes. These are little bits of programming that automatically find and fix mistakes in data. They're the reason you can browse the web without your computer crashing every time there's a tiny hiccup in the connection. And here's the absolute mind-blower. This exact type of error-correcting code that Jim Gates found in the math describing fundamental particles, it's also found in our own DNA, making sure our cells copy correctly. So let that sink in. The same type of code that keeps your web browser from crashing and your DNA from making mistakes seems to be keeping the universe itself from falling apart. That's not just a coincidence, that's wild. So, if our universe is actually running on code, what does that even mean for reality itself? Well, the implications are they're out there. And what's amazing is that it connects the most advanced physics of today with ideas from ancient philosophers. Let's talk about something called the holographic principle. This is a real theory in physics, and it's a trip. It suggests that our entire three-dimensional reality, you, me, this planet, everything, might just be a projection, like a hologram. And all the information that creates this 3D projection is actually stored on a flat 2D surface at the edge of the universe. Think of it like a cosmic movie screen. And this is where that ancient philosophy comes in. Physicist David Tung says it's basically Plato's famous story of the cave. You've got these prisoners who have only ever seen shadows on a wall, so they think the shadows are reality. We might be just like them, mistaking this 3D world for the real thing, when the true reality is actually the 2D information that's projecting it. This rabbit hole just keeps getting deeper. Let's talk about consciousness itself. There's a theory from some brilliant minds, Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff, that our consciousness isn't just in our brains. They think these tiny little tubes in our brain cells act like quantum computers, and the information inside them can get entangled with the universe itself. So when we die, that quantum information doesn't just vanish. It can't be destroyed. It just disperses back into the universe. It's basically a scientific way of saying our soul might just be quantum information, forever part of the cosmos. All right. We've seen how our own brains might be simulating our reality and how the universe itself seems to have computer code baked into it. So, if we accept all that, even for a minute, it leads to the ultimate question. If this is all a simulation, who are the programmers? The answer might not be what you think. Philosopher Nick Bostrom has a mind-bending idea. He says the programmers, they're not aliens. They're not gods. They're us. Well, our great-great-great-great-great-grandkids. Just think about how far technology has come in just the last 50 years, let alone 500. Now imagine a few thousand years from now. Humans will likely become post-humans with computing power we literally can't even comprehend. And what would a civilization that powerful do for fun or for research? They'd probably run simulations of their past. They'd run ancestor simulations. They'd simulate us. So, what are the actual odds we're in a simulation? Well, if you buy this argument, it's just a numbers game. If a civilization like that runs, say, 1 billion ancestor simulations, then you have one real base reality and 1 billion fake ones. So the odds that you're in that one real world versus one of the billions of simulations, they're not great. In fact, some people have put the odds that our world is a fake at around 1 in 20. That's a 5% chance. But let's be honest, at the end of the day, does any of this actually matter? I love this quote from philosopher Jan Westerhoff. He basically says, look, even if this cake is a dream cake, and I'm paying with dream money, it still tastes awesome. If the simulation is so perfect that you can't tell the difference, then it is real for all intents and purposes. A perfect simulation is, by definition, just reality. And I think that's really where we land. We can look for glitches in the matrix, we can analyze the physics, we can argue about the odds all day long, but it all comes down to one final simple question. If this reality, if your life, your friends, your memories, if it's all completely indistinguishable from the real thing, does it even matter if it's a simulation? I'll leave you with that one.